Hi, my name is Sarah Adames, and I have chosen to talk about sensory processing disorders and how sensory tools can help a child who has a sensory disorder. I will be talking about what sensory processing is, as well as what sensory tools are, and specifically I wanted to touch on weighted vests and how it can help a child who is overly stimulated or who has a sensory disorder. So first thing is about what sensory processing is. And it basically is known as the process in which we receive information through our senses, how it is organized, and how it is used in order to accomplish daily activities. I have a picture here that breaks down, just like a general explanation on how we process information, and in this case it would be how a child processes information. So first, they receive information through their afferent pathways, which is basically just like their sensory, the five senses, or sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. Also, they get information from their vestibular sense, which is what lets us know where our bodies are in space and time. Also, proprioception is another way that we gain information through our afferent pathway. It's the ability to be aware of where our body parts are in relationship to each other. After information comes through the afferent pathway, it is sent to the central nervous system, and here I put the brain, where the information is processed and the brain makes sense of the information and decides what we should do with the information. And then the last step would be, once the brain decides what it wants to do, it goes through the efferent pathway, where our brain sends information to our muscles for action based on the information received and processed. So a child with a sensory disorder has a problem processing the information that they're taking in through their senses. So they act out on sensory stimulus different than a normal person would. And that's why we see some kids who, for example, who have autism, who are really sensitive to hearing sounds that are too loud, and they end up covering their ears, or just kids that are hyperactive or not active as much. It's a result of this process not working as it should. In a journal that aimed to research the effectiveness of sensory integration interventions in children with autism spectrum disorders, the sensory integration theory was a theory that was developed by A. Jean Ayers, an American occupational therapist. The theory focuses on the neurological processing of sensory information. Ayers understood that interferences in neurological processing and integration of sensory information disrupts the construction of purposeful behaviors. Unfortunately, there are cases in which, like mentioned earlier, this process does not fully function, as is the case in children with sensory integration disorders. This disorder affects how a child takes in information and processes it, and as a result, it affects how a child acts, as the sensory integration theory explains. According to Pathways.org, a non-for-profit organization, Children with sensory issues demonstrate oversensitivity or underreactivity to touch, movement, sights, or sounds. They also might show high or low activity levels. They could also be easily distracted. They could have poor attention to tasks. Also, they could have delays in their speech, motor skills, or academic achievement. Also, problems with coordination, poor body awareness, and difficulty with learning new tasks. Therapists have developed many tools that can help children with these sensory integrative disorders. These are what are known as sensory tools. Sensory tools are used to stimulate a child's sensory system. In the same journal that focuses on the effectiveness of sensory integration interventions, they state that the goals of these treatments are to improve sensory modulation related to behavior and attention, and to increase abilities for social interactions. These interventions aim to help the nervous system modulate, organize, and integrate information from the environment, which result in future adaptive responses. As stated earlier, one of the tools that I've chosen to talk about is the weighted vest. The weighted vest is used on children who are overly stimulated. These vests help children calm down and focus. The vest is used on children with disorders like autism, ADD, ataxia, Parkinson's disease, and cerebral palsy. The weighted vest is believed to work through the application of deep pressure. This is believed to have a calming effect. It works by working on the central nervous system. It is supposed to help the CNS in the processing of sensory information in hopes of helping the child perform everyday tasks in an organized way. The vests are worn over regular clothing. The weights are placed in the inside of the vest, so it's not seen. It also applies constant deep pressure that is supposed to have a calming effect on the central nervous system, which results in having organized movements, increased attention, and decreased agitation. There aren't any standard guidelines related to the use of the weighted vests, but it is recommended that the vest be worn no longer than an hour and that the weight in the vest does not exceed 5% of the child's total body weight. I will now play a video made by Unique Prints Pediatric Therapy Services where they demonstrate how the weighted vest works on a child. Sensory processing disorders can manifest themselves in many different forms, like autism and ADD. Through the use of sensory tools on the child, the effects of these disorders can be alleviated through the stimulation of a child's sensory system.